So welcome today. I'm here with the wonderful Boston the Orator, one of the best poets in the city. And he's also one of the Opal22s finer members from the originals. And we are really pleased to have him here today. So one of the things I wanted to talk to Boston about today was what it's like being a black male, a young black male living in this country presently. How do you feel from obviously being born here, going to school here? We talk about traumas in our community, and good stuff as well. I mean, what's your what you got to say about living today in the UK?
I'll summarize it quickly in terms of up until this moment and up until maybe 2016, it was just a case of getting to know yourself. And Leicester's quite a diverse city. I think it's one of the most multicultural places in Europe. So it was always good. Do you know what I mean? Like there was always somebody different. There was always another minority. Over the years, we've seen the black community slowly dissipate a bit. But the spirit and energy is always there. And I think as we hit second and third generation, as we head towards that direction, I think we're at the point now today where one of the things I was considering earlier today is the position we might find ourselves in if we rely on events such as Black History Month and other like novel festivities to tell us who we are. I feel like there's a disconnect that's been brewing for a while. But if you paint it over the cracks, you don't see them. Do you know what I mean? But I do think there's a huge swell within my generation of people who are actively conscious, and maybe it reminds me of like the 60s and 70s and some of the people that were born out the experiences they had in the early 1950s in America and different parts of Britain. So some of those militant attitudes and mindsets are re-emerging. But I feel like there's a huge risk that our narrative and our story and our challenges will be forgotten, because we've got the social structure. We have a social hierarchy established in the country. Brexit came and kind of reinforced those. Corona came and made it worse for the majority of those social hierarchy statuses. But one thing remains in common is at the bottom of all of them is black people. So after you have the working class, the underclass, and then you have black people. So I feel like it's like nobody ain't trying to hear what's going on in the black community because, oh yeah, but it's Corona, and oh yeah, but everyone's got it tough now. But it's like, does that mean I shouldn't shout about the issues that I have in my community just because you have issues in yours now? Like, so I feel that we're at an interesting juncture, but there's a huge swell of people who have got that militant mindset and spirit, but there's also just a whole lot of ignorance because that's the way it is at the minute.
Do you think that your generation is more empowered than, say, your mum's and mine?
Yes, my generation. I think your generation, to a certain degree, and I was talking to S.O. Large on Twitter about this, who's a grime artist. It's just like, they messed up, man. Like, messed up. They got comfortable. Because, like, my grandma's generation, your parents' generation, they came and they grafted. They came and they owned houses. They're probably more black house ownership in the 60s, 70s than there is today. Do you know what I mean? Because they came and they bought their houses within X amount of years of being here. So your generation was like, yeah, we're here now, like, and you could be comfortable and you could be a bit more boastier with your blackness because like my grandparents' generation, your parents' generation came and kind of just settled in and worked, just came. And then, but you had the freedom to be like, nah, I'm black. Yeah, you're not calling me wog in the playground. You're not doing that. Do you know what I mean? But with that, with the you kind of assimilated into British culture so much that the issues that came with back home and our culture weren't directly important to you. It's now I've got opportunity to own the latest trainers. That's important to me now immediately. So I feel like my generation are on record are the first generation statistically, not just Black, but all generations, statistically worse off than their parents. So this is the first generation on record where my generation is the worst off than their parents. And that means the Black generation is also doing worse off my generation than the generation before. But that generates ideas and that brings people together, and that's hardship because people think, okay, raw, you know, I can't just be an island. Do you know what I mean? I have to work within my community because, you get me, one hand can't clap. You get me, a bird with one wing can't fly. So I feel like now there's a bit more of that. We're a bit more militant, but it's harder because the nature of activism has changed. You know what I mean? In the 90s and now, you could go out in your like hundreds and thousands and go protest and whatever, and it'd just be a normal thing. Boom, yeah, you know, they're gathering down there on Saturday, man, go look at some. That doesn't happen no more. Do you know what I mean? Like, because society is maybe in a different place. But the mentality and the attitude and the wickedness is there. My generation's got it. We're firing.
So where do you see the future?
In which context?
For your children and for your next, you know, how do you feel about navigating in the world over the next 20 years?
Oh, I'm excited. It is a Black man's world. Trust me, if we should wish it to be so. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, it's like, okay, we talk about connecting to root and spirit and going back home. I'm just going back home, innit? Like, I was thinking about this actually just before the call. And I'm like, do you know what? There's so many solutions to a lot of the issues that we have here. I was watching an interview in 1973 with Fannie Lou Hamer. Who else was on there? There was a couple names on there. Toure, some wicked names. And all the issues they were describing in 1960s, 70s America are exactly what we're going through here in England right now. So I'm like, all right, cool, man. Let me just go to places where people look like me. I love being invisible. I can't explain it. You know, when I go to the Caribbean or I just go to Africa, I'm invisible. I am not a big Black man. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just another guy. Do you know what I mean? So I want for my children for that normality, do you know what I mean? To just be people and not to have to be Black people. Do you know what I mean? Because they're always going to be Black. They don't have to be reminded. They don't have to live in a society that constantly reminds them. Do you know what I mean? I want them to feel comfortable and liberated within their skin, to not worry about that and just worry about just solving world problems. And you know what I mean? Go and just worry about great stuff. Go and worry about being great and amazing. Like, we've done the groundwork.
So, I mean, it sounds like your plans are not British or not to be in Britain. What do you see for British Black people?
Hopefully a recognition that it's go to Africa. Go to Africa, I think, like, and not just, you don't have to go there and live, but go home, go and touch base, go and tap in and come back. And it will help you refocus your energies in your efforts for a greater Britain for the African diaspora. Like, but I think, because, you know, sometimes it's hard to know what you're supposed to be doing if you don't know what has already been done before you. Do you know what I mean? So first, everyone go home. Just 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, go, come back, if that's what you want to do, and then get to work. But I think sometimes we need guidance, and sometimes there's no better teacher than experience. Do you know what I mean? So go and experience what it's like to just be a man or just be a woman and be invisible. And that means don't go stand up in the hotel resorts and that. Just go be with your people. Just go be local. You know, you get me? Like, but I think overall, I think for the fight ahead, which people love to hear about the fight, don't they? I think for the fight ahead, I think there's going to be a big disassociation with the struggles of America, which is very important and overdue, because then we can really focus in and hone on the issues that are specific to the communities that we live in, because they exist and they endure. But I think it's a difficult fight, and I'm not a pessimist, but there's a huge Chinese population in Jamaica, like historically. I think if the Chinese community in Jamaica started demanding the same things that we're demanding of the British government over here, the Jamaican government will just look at the Chinese community like, yeah, just usher man, yeah. I'm not China this, brother. You see me? Like, you get me, manners, but yo. So I'm not saying that a lot of our efforts are futile, but we have to look at the extent to which our energies can be best used. And I think that's important.
Thank you so much for that, Boston. It was really insightful talking to you. I'm going to stop the video here, but thank you for that.
No problem. Take care.